Hey YouTube, petey twofinger here with a tip, basic soldering. I'm using this is a Heiko, however you say it. It's supposedly 60 watt. I'm sure it's more like a 30 in the Weller station adjustable. This is just a cheap station. I didn't like the Weller iron because the replacement tips were difficult to locate and they were expensive. These I can get 10 tips for $1 or $2. It's cheap for the tips. And that's why I like this. Now this has an adjuster that I kept knocking around. I think I actually ripped that out of there, that adjuster. And up on top here I've just got some dumb sticky stuff. And then back here is two of these heat clips. Those are important. But basically when it comes to soldering, the number one thing that saved my butt is this plumber's flux. Now you don't have to use plumber's flux. You can use any kind of flux. This is in a small glass container that's got plastic around the outside. And when it gets real messy, what we do, we take this embossing tool. You could use a hair dryer. This just puts out hot air. And then that will melt the, you can see I melted one of my applicators. That will melt down the excess, the messy flux that's all over the sides. So when it comes time to, I'm actually going to do some soldering here. I've got this board here. So we've got a cable here plugged in for the input, and I'm going to need to cut in a cable for the output. So what I'll do is I'm going to tape down. This will help so the device doesn't move. And then, because I find that a lot of the stuff that comes new, the solder that they use doesn't have any lead in it. It's all stainless steel or some other type of metal, which is more difficult for me to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and dip into my flux and apply that generously. Just blob it all over that whole area that we're going to be cutting in. And then what I'm going to do is come in here. I should be using a device to keep the air clean. But I'm going through each one and I'm adding a little bit of solder. Now, here's my plug. Another interesting thing with soldering is just kind of a real common sense thing, that you need to have the whatever you're soldering shouldn't be fighting. Meaning, if you've got one wire here and the way that wire is bent, they're not on the same plane. They're not touching each other well. You need to get these, like if you start out with both of them like that, they're going to go together a lot better than if one is bent this way and the other's bent that. Then you got to try to fiddle around. So if you can kind of set up what you're going to be soldering, set that up first and get it nice. Now, I know there's a point that I have to bring up about this flux, the type of flux that I use. Oftentimes, people have been taught you never use plumber's flux on electronics because it will eat away at the circuit traces. And I'm here to tell you that that very well may be true. It maybe years ago when they made much more aggressive plumber's flux, but I've been using. Here's the deal, okay? As soon as I get this done, I'm going to soak it down with alcohol or naphtha or thinner. Thinner I wouldn't recommend because it really stinks. Really, the best solvent to use is this alcohol. And you can take a toothbrush, you can brush it off. I find most of the time just I can use these pieces of windshield washing towels or a Q-tip. But if you remove the flux, then the flux has been removed. So that's a moot point. Now, electronics flux, you can get these flux pens. It depends on the amount of soldering you're going to do. For me, I used to get these tins of Odie. Stay here, camera. I'm going to be back in 1 second. I used to get these tins of, what was it called? Otis? Harveys. I used to get these tins like this they were $1. And this is a gift. My daughter gave me this empty old Eagle soldering paste. But anyway, something like this, they stopped making Harveys, and the company that bought them out was this Otis, and I ended up for like $14, I got a tub. of it, and then I refill this. And the reason that I choose to use plumber's flux is because you could get a little pen, a tiny pen with some maybe 30 drops of a fine liquid, or you could, and that's like $13.95 for that pen. Or you could get a tub, like family size, like you're going to slap it on the turkey, like that. So that's what I go for. And again, the stuff that I built before I started using plumber's flux, none of that stuff's really around. But going back to like the late 90s, everything that I built that I used the plumber's flux on, I still have, and it still functions. So as far as that, don't listen to petey, don't ever use all of that. Yeah. The most important thing is that you're using some type of flux. And this is what the pros, techs, and experts won't tell you. They won't tell you that 9 out of 10 things, I mean, if you just stripped 2 wires and you've tinned them already, you don't really need flux, but I use it on everything. The difference, if you solder with flux one time, you will never solder without flux again. It's the difference between it just sticking and working like magic, or it not really wanting to stick. And if people can say you're using the wrong technique, your iron isn't hot enough, 2 different kinds of metal, wetting action, oxidization, whatever type of buzzwords they want to use, all of that is solved in this little jar with this little tool, and it works like magic. But I do remove it. So it's an extra step. It's like, would you rather fight with this thing and get the board super hot, risk lifting a trace, you're spilling solder on your, if you're like me and you're wearing shorts, or would you rather take that extra time that you would be monkeying around, cooking the board, wasting solder, inhaling fumes, and apply a little flux and then have to remove it. So in that 1 to 3 seconds to apply it, 1 to 3 seconds to remove it, all that other time that you would have consumed fighting with the device to try to get the solder stick. And I shouldn't have to argue about this and make a big deal out of it, but every time I bring this up, I get somebody coming out of the woodwork telling me that I'm doing it wrong. And it just bothers me because this is really cheap and it works so well for me. So I'm not going to recommend you use plumber's flux simply because I don't want other people coming in the comments and saying don't listen to petey. That's what I use. That's what works for me. I would recommend you get a second job, get a third mortgage on your house. If you've got children, you can sell them into a sex slavery industry so you can support your flux habit. Oh wait, should I do one? Actually show them what's up here. There's one. There's 2. Now this one, this is where the rubber meets the road because it's not, I'm going to need a extra finger here. All right, and then we're going to come in here with, it would have been nice to have a flashlight. You can actually see what we're doing here. Like I said, you spray the schnapps on, and I'm sure the purists are just going, oh my goodness, he's getting liquid all over the board. Oh no, he didn't even take the chip out. Oh no. And you know what? Everything's going to be fine. It's going to power up fine because I'm not going to turn it on when it's got any moisture on it. It's going to evaporate because that's naphtha and it evaporates very quickly. But I actually need I'm going to be back, and you guys just hold tight. I got to go grab a toothbrush, and I should probably grab and this is actually the same toothbrush I use for my teeth. Grab a couple of Q-tips. So yeah, this is what the tools of the trade here. The lighter fluid, that's for barbecue. I really never use solvent, which that solvent is, it's just paint thinner. It's generic paint thinner that I got from like Walmart, like Sunnyside brand, or it's not Sunnyside. They have a different brand. But yeah, you can clean it up like this. What I like doing is putting a rag underneath it, hose it down, and then give her a good scrubble. And then, I don't know if you want to get a close-up on that. As it dries, you can see how cleanly that's soldered and how minimal of effort it took to get that on there. And then what we can do is we can turn on our continuity. Oh, you know what? This is set up for a current draw test. So I've got the leads. Okay, so here is this plug. We'll start with the ground. That's really weird. Well, I'm going to have to figure out. Anyway, something's up with this cable. I don't think I should be getting a short on the one side. I can't believe I go and demo this and then I got an issue. I'm going to cut you guys loose and we're going to come back and show you how we do a current draw test on this. This came from an eBay auction. It's a preamp, a 5532 is the name of the chip. And in the specs online for the auction, it said that this runs at a 600 milliamp draw. And there's no way that this thing's gobbling up more than half of 1 amp. This little tiny chip preamp. So we're going to actually test that and see what it is sucking. I'm going to guess 6 at idle at quintessence or quiet, however you say that, and then maybe 16 to 20 at when you're really cranking some Led Zeppelin through it. Slayer. All right, you guys. Peace.